Cinema Classics is sponsored by the Gateway Film Center and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. You can listen to shows online at wcbe.org. I am Johnny DiLoretto.
And I'm John DeSando.
This here is what they call, in really sophisticated circles, John, Cinema Classics.
It is. And you know, as long as we've been around, which is a good 11 years,
Yeah.
Chinatown has been around for, since 1974?
1974.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
And we just finished reading what I thought was a delightful report on that from Sam Wasson,
Yeah.
who also did a Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, he's done a couple
Fifth
of...
Ave.
He's like the preeminent historian of, recent Hollywood, or not so recent, rather.
Yeah.
But
I know you have a more of a meta take than I do. I'm interested in the little gossipy things about his, and you kind of look at it more as Hollywood's evolution.
Well, the book is really great. I mean, the book is really interesting because what he does is take the three or four major. Now I'm thinking about 5 major players.
Well, let me
right?
just say first of all, it's The Big Goodbye.
Yeah, the name of the book is The Big Goodbye.
Right.
And what are we saying goodbye to? We're saying goodbye to a kind of Hollywood that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
Where art reigned supreme briefly in the late 60s to mid 70s. And so Wasson's book is a sort of, a tribute to that period. But he starts the book out by focusing on some of the key figures from Chinatown: Polanski, Robert Evans, Robert Towne, Nicholson, right? And he kind of takes you through their backstories, how they arrived at that moment when they did, how they collaborated together. And through the lens of that experience, also kind of reflecting on the business of Hollywood at that time.
Oh, and I think you're absolutely right. The one thing that fascinates me is how do you put together a film? And good Lord, in the case of the writer, Robert Towne, he was going all kinds of gymnastics and years working on this project.
Yeah, working on it. And then what's beautiful is, and Wasson gets into this a little bit, is, for years, decades, and still to this day, Chinatown is considered the greatest screenplay ever written.
He won it for the Oscar.
Right. But I mean, even more than that, it's considered this sort of the pinnacle of what that art form is, right? But when you're reading the book, you realize that it can't possibly be that, because we don't know what the final shooting script was. Polanski had so much editing and so much input on the script that really, whatever Robert Towne gave him, apparently according to this book, there was hours more footage and story, and it was
And there's this
incoherent.
This guy Edward Taylor, who was closely associated with Towne, who did a great deal for Towne without being acknowledged. Just paid him. So you're hitting on something that so intrigues me: the collaborative effort here, the shenanigans that were going on to get this thing going. And you mentioned Polanski.
Yeah.
Good Lord, the baggage that Polanski brought to this is the death of his wife Sharon Tate and his escaping the
brutal murder of Sharon Tate by the Manson family.
Yeah, right.
She was pregnant at the time. That coming on the heels of this guy's childhood, like you said, in Eastern Europe, where the Nazis, took his mother.
And so what I loved is how Wasson kind of shows us Polanski's attitude toward the ending of that film, which is one of the great endings of all time, completely counterintuitive to the Hollywood tradition.
And, I love how Robert Evans fits into this story.
It is great.
Robert Evans was the producer behind some of the great films of all time. And he was a guy that loved the art of movie making. And he loved to give these guys a wide berth. He wanted Nicholson and Polanski and Towne to develop these, and Coppola. He was the producer of The Godfather.
And Evans was a pretty boy who had been in movies, and probably, I think Wasson suggests, felt himself even superior to the actors on the set. So he was a real egotistical guy who, however, was responsible for making this move.
Yeah. And Wasson does a good job of painting the picture of his estate. I forget what it's called now, but it was like sort of Xanadu of movie making and idea collaboration, and the book totally laments, it draws a very stark picture, but laments the passing of that, and really, if you could pinpoint it, it's that television people were brought in to run Hollywood.
Yeah, and you're so right. We've certainly passed from the studio domination to more of a particular person like Evans, and then, yes, to the encroachment of television. What a change was going on there in the midst of a classic. Now, there's one British group, I forgot, I don't even know if I knew the name, that considers this the best movie ever made.
Okay.
So, along with your comments about, certainly it's one of the greatest ever made.
Well, it's beautiful to look at. Did you rewatch it after you read the book? Or
no, I haven't. Yeah.
It only illuminates how wonderful a movie it is and how beautiful it is.
Yes.
But one of the things that you spoke earlier about the collaborative nature.
Yeah.
And I think as just casual moviegoers, we take so much for granted how deeply sometimes the costume designers are thinking about their collaboration, right? Their what they're giving to the movie, right? And what it's going to mean to the movie. Production design.
Right. Well, you take a look at Nicholson, who was a fashion plate.
Yeah.
It gave him a chance to show his best suits and hats and so on. Gave him that chance. So there's a part of him in that.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, I would encourage folks to revisit this movie,
yes,
or if you've never seen it before, but to keep in mind, and read the book, to keep in mind that Chinatown, and this is what I love, is Robert Towne's struggle to explain to everybody that Chinatown is just a state of mind.
Yes.
That the story doesn't take place in Chinatown. There's not a huge plot point that happens in Chinatown or due to Chinatown. We don't ever really know. We just know it's the state of mind where something is wrong.
That great line.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown, right? And I love that they stuck through. That he was able to fight for that, and that Polanski saw the value in that, and that we have this great movie today. And that era of Hollywood is sort of a lost Chinatown.